Hey there, folks. Buckle up because today we're diving into a dark, gripping, and often misunderstood chapter of human history. Imagine millions of lives stripped of freedom, forced into unimaginable hardship, across centuries and continents. And in this video, we're uncovering the 10 largest slaving civilizations in history. We're not just talking numbers, we're talking about the raw, heartbreaking reality of human bondage. So, stick with me as we peel back the layers of history to reveal who enslaved the most people, and why the names on this list might not be the ones you expect. Before we jump into the countdown, let's get clear on what we mean by slavery for this list. A slave is someone who has no control over their own body or work. Their property, owned by another person, bought and sold like objects. They're forced to obey their owner's every command, with little to no legal rights or hope of freedom. Now, this definition leaves out groups like serfs, bonded laborers, or indentured servants, even though their lives were often just as brutal. If we included serfs, for instance, a country like Russia would easily make the top 10, but we're sticking to a strict definition here. To figure out the numbers, we've estimated the total population of each civilization over time and multiplied it by the ratio of slaves to free people. It's not perfect, but it gives us a solid idea of the scale. For example, in ancient Athens, which existed from around 500 to 300 BC, the total population over that time was about 2.25 million. Roughly 1 in 3 were slaves. So that's about 33% of the population, or roughly 750,000 enslaved souls. Now, let's get to the heart of it. The 10 largest slaving civilizations in history. Kicking things off in a tied 10th place, we have Abyssinia, also known as the Ethiopian Empire. This empire spanned an incredible 700 years, from 1270 to 1974. Over that time, it had a cumulative population of 27 million people. In the early years, about 10% of them were slaves, though that number dropped to between 2 and 4% in later centuries, according to advisors to Emperor Haile Selassie. That works out to between 9 and 10 million enslaved individuals over the empire's history. Sharing 10th place is the Umayyad Caliphate, an Islamic empire that, in just under 100 years between 661 and 750, managed to enslave around 10 million people across North Africa, the Eastern Mediterranean, and the Middle East. That's a staggering number for such a short time frame, showing just how rapidly slavery could spread under conquest. Moving up to 9th place, we have China's Qing dynasty. Now, this one's a bit tricky because it depends on how you define slavery. Many people during this dynasty were in bonded servitude or other forms of forced labor, but they don't quite fit our strict definition of slaves. The Qing dynasty had a massive total population of 2.5 billion over its history. If we estimate that just 0.5% of them were slaves, that's about 12.5 million people. But some argue the number could be much higher, between 3 and 5%, which would push the figure to a staggering 75 to 125 million. It's a huge range, but even at the lower end, it's enough to land them on this list. In 8th place, we travel back to ancient Egypt, a civilization that stretched from around 3000 BC to 30 BC. That's an incredibly long run, and over those millennia, their cumulative population reached 264 million. About 5% of them were slaves, which means roughly 13 million people were enslaved in this iconic empire. Think about that. The pyramids, the pharaohs, all built on the backs of millions who had no freedom. At 7th place, we come to a much more recent and chilling example, the Third Reich. In just 12 short years, from 1933 to 1945, the Nazis enslaved as many as 26 million people, mostly taken from Central and Eastern Europe. That's the fastest rate of enslavement in history. Men, women, and children were abducted, forced into labor camps, and subjected to unimaginable horrors. It's a stark reminder that slavery isn't just an ancient problem. It's happened in living memory. Tied for 6th place, we have 2 civilizations. First, there's the Joseon dynasty of Korea, which lasted from 1392 to 1897. Over those 500 years, an estimated 28 million people were enslaved. Sharing 6th place are the Byzantines, who called themselves Romans even though their capital was Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul. This Christian civilization had a total population of 400 million over its history, and about 7% of them were slaves. That works out to another 28 million enslaved individuals. 2 very different empires, yet both responsible for the same staggering number of human lives in chains. In 5th place, we have the Sultanate of Delhi, an Islamic kingdom that ruled from 1206 to 1526, with a cumulative population of 446 million. About 8% of them were slaves. That's a total of 36 million people forced into bondage over the empire's 300 years. It's a massive number, reflecting how deeply entrenched slavery was in the social and economic systems of the time. Coming in at 4th place is the Mali Empire, a West African civilization that existed from 1214 to 1610. This empire stands out for having one of the highest slave-to-free ratios on our list. Roughly 1/3 of its population was enslaved, an astonishing proportion. With a total cumulative population of 170 million, that means about 57 million people were slaves. The Malay Empire also played a huge role in creating the infrastructure for West Africa's massive slave trade. They established trade routes, markets, and systems that later supplied millions of slaves to European buyers. It's a sobering thought that so much of the transatlantic slave trade had roots in this empire's practices. In 3rd place, we have another Islamic state, the Abbasid Caliphate, which controlled much of the Middle East and North Africa from 750 to 1258. Over those 500 years, their cumulative population reached 635 million. About 10% of them were slaves, which translates to 63 million enslaved individuals. That's an enormous figure, showing how widespread and systemic slavery was in this powerful empire. Just missing the top spot in 2nd place is yet another Islamic dynasty, the Mughal Empire, which ruled most of northern India from the early 16th to the mid-18th century. With a total population of 1.4 billion over that time, about 8% were slaves. That adds up to a staggering 112 million people in bondage. It's a number so large it's hard to wrap your head around. But it reflects the sheer scale of the empire and the role slavery played in its economy and society. And now, at number 1, the civilization that enslaved more people than any other in history, the Roman Empire, spanning from 27 BC to 395 AD. The Romans had a cumulative population of just over 1 billion. Estimates suggest that between 10 and 20% of them were slaves. That means somewhere between 100 and 200 million people were enslaved over the empire's history. Think about that for a moment. Up to 200 million human beings, stripped of their freedom, forced to build roads, fight in arenas, and serve in households across a vast empire. The Romans didn't just practice slavery. They perfected it as a cornerstone of their society. No other civilization comes close to matching these numbers. Now, you might be surprised to see some familiar names missing from this list. Take the British, for example. They're often associated with the slave trade, having bought around 3.4 million slaves from West African traders and shipped them to plantations in the Americas between 1640 and 1807. That's a horrific number, but it doesn't crack the top 10 when you look at cumulative totals over centuries. Part of why the British slave trade is so well known is that they kept meticulous records, better than most other civilizations. It's also worth noting that in 1807, the British became the first major power in history to abolish slavery and, more importantly, to enforce that abolition, spending vast sums, estimated at around $2 billion in today's money, to patrol the seas and stop the slave trade. It's a complex legacy, but it doesn't change the fact that their total numbers don't rank among the highest. You might also notice that, apart from the Romans and Nazis, no European nations made the list, not even the Portuguese, who were heavily involved in the transatlantic slave trade, nor the United States, where slavery was a brutal reality for millions. This isn't something often highlighted in Western education, where the focus tends to be on European and American slavery. Similarly, the Ottoman Empire, often thought of as one of history's greatest slave traders, doesn't make the top 10. The Ottomans enslaved massive numbers, potentially up to 10 million, from Africa, the Mediterranean, and Eastern Europe, including Poland, Ukraine, and Russia. Fun fact, the word slave actually comes from Slav, reflecting how many Slavic people were taken into bondage. But because the Ottomans, like the Abbasids before them, often castrated male slaves, their enslaved populations couldn't grow through generations as they did in places like the Americas, without that generational multiplication. Their total numbers don't reach the top tier, and their legacy of slavery was largely erased over time. Let's take a moment to reflect on the bigger picture. Slavery isn't just a relic of the past. It's as old as human civilization itself, and tragically, it's still with us. Today, it's estimated that as many as 50 million people live in slave-like conditions, mostly in parts of Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. That's a heartbreaking reality. And it puts into perspective just how groundbreaking the British abolition movement of the 19th century was. They didn't just pass laws, they actively fought to end the slave trade, spending millions, equivalent to billions of dollars today, and risking lives to intercept slave ships. It wasn't perfect, and it didn't erase the damage done, but it was a turning point in history. So there you have it, the 10 largest slaving civilizations in history, ranked by the sheer scale of human lives they forced into bondage. From the Romans with their staggering 100 to 200 million slaves to the Mali Empire with its shocking 1/3 enslaved population. These numbers remind us of the darkest side of human nature, but they also challenge us to think about how we remember history. Why do we focus on some stories of slavery and not others? Why are some empires' atrocities taught in schools while others are barely mentioned? These are tough questions, and I hope this video sparks some thought and conversation. If this video has moved you or made you think, please share it with a friend or loved one. Let's keep this conversation going. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care and goodbye.